Oh, that's nice. Type I call in the chat. Beautiful done. Beautifully done.
Not bad, eh?
Beautifully done, sir.
Hello. Welcome to Night Midnight. I'm Jason. This
And
is
I'm
my friend
LJ.
Elgin. I thought I was going to say it this time. I'm joking.
No, I jumped the gun.
Man, the guy's too quick. He would have won every single showdown. Pa, 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 pa.
Lightning in a bottle. Lightning in a bottle. Catch
Lightning
it.
in a battle bottle. You think it's got
Battle
sharp
bottle? Excuse me.
spikes? Hurts the
Yeah,
hand.
yeah, it would.
I think it would. I agree.
It would.
Oh. So how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm excited about tonight. I did a lot of research.
Nice.
Well, not a lot, but I did research that led me down to reading 3 books that I never thought I would read.
Which ones are those? 3 new books. 3 whole new books.
Yeah, 3 whole new books.
Yeah.
One of them was let me look it up here. Smoky God.
Smoky God, okay.
The other one was a Hindu book based on the Patala.
Okay.
Which is what our I forgot we didn't talk about what we're talking about tonight. Our whole subject.
Tonight we're discussing Inner Earth, the Hollow Earth. There's kind of like the 2 ways of thinking about it, whether it's just a hollow land, or I think when we're talking about the difference between Hollow Earth versus Inner Earth, I think Inner Earth more suggests civilization with people, maybe an Hollow Earth is just the concept. And I'm not sure. Again, if I'm wrong, please someone correct me. We have our comments here. Scan this, type exclamation call. If I'm wrong, let me know.
Yeah, please join in the conversation. Correct us.
I believe that Inner Earth refers to more of like the civilizations, Inner Earth civilizations, whereas the idea of a Hollow Earth is just, maybe it's just there's more land undiscovered, maybe that's all it is.
I kind of look at it like Hollow Earth is the theory, Inner Earth is the place.
Okay,
that makes sense.
Yes.
I guess
I think that's a better way of putting it.
Because I feel like, and we were talking about this off camera or off cast, but like Inner Earth versus Flat Earth. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing, or Hollow Earth versus Flat Earth.
Hollow versus
flat. The theories, they're 2 theories. You know what I mean?
And that's one that I personally don't understand how. We're not doing Flat Earth today, but I don't know if some people correlate that there is both a Hollow Earth to the Flat Earth, but I've always thought of the Hollow Earth as starting with the mindset of, because if you're going to make an argument, you have to stand on some line of the sand to build something else. So the line of the sand that I always thought that Hollow Earth was on was, yes, it's a sphere, yes, it's a globe, a ball, but, I've heard a lot of interesting ones, and that one, some that we're actually on the inside already, and then and that one is that one's an interesting one. But
that one is interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't read.
You didn't
that
come
one,
across that one, or
no, not that one.
So this one isn't one of the biggest ones, and I think it's because it makes less and less sense as you go, personally. So the idea of like the Hollow Earth is that, we're living on the outside. We believe and take for granted the outside crust that we're living on, but then there's more land on the inside. The people who think that we are living on the inside are only thinking about centrifugal force. They're only thinking about the spinning, the hydro spinner, the Forso spinner at the carnival that, you try to stick your head out and then it sucks you back and you're stuck to the walls. And because if we were a spinning globe, then if we were on the outside, we'd fly off. But that's the difference between centrifugal force and mass, which gravity, yeah. And that's where that's my belief that, I believe on, certain other documents that talk about mass and gravity and everything. But if we already did live on the inside, they think that, to my understanding, that there's an infinite small universe. I guess it's like when we look up, we're looking into the center, and maybe
Oh, okay.
yeah, is how I've understood it.
Okay, see that brings to question my first question of this whole subject.
Okay.
So with the hollow earth theory, and I can't find any definition, any obviously concrete thinking on it, but if we're on the inside of this circle, right? Are we on the or excuse me, if we're on the outside of this circle, are they talking about us being on the inside of the ring, staring back into a sun?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
okay, or is it we're on another globe inside of the globe and there's a sun that's orbiting inside that globe? Because I'm like, one of those ways completely takes me out of the game where I'm like, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
believe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way where it's where we're in a sun, there is one theory that there is a sun that's orbiting inside, and I hate that theory. I'm like, no.
That's the one. So I don't know if the sun actually orbits. Does it orbit inside, or is it suspended in the center? Now I do have a picture that I've
Right.
seen, and I am actually trying to send this over to you, and I am right now through Discord. Actually, if you wanted to open that up,
Okay, I'll pop it open.
This is what it looks like in my head, and I found this picture online which correlated with basically the pictures of Agarthan, inner Earth, hollow Earth, that I've always thought of. I'm not sure if that sun is supposed to be rotating, if it's stationary. I don't know how it could move. Again, I'm basing my understanding of this theory, this concept, on what I believe that I know about the actual universe I believe in, which revolves around mass and gravity and the way, like, the sun, we're spinning around it. But that's what I was taught. Maybe I'm a fool. So I don't know how, if there is a hollow earth and then there is a sun, perhaps we don't know what the sun really is. If we are looking in on a sun and that sun is not, if it is moving through an open space inside of a hollow earth, then I would probably venture to say that a sun like that wouldn't have the same kind of gravity, mass. Is it a source of light and heat? Sure. But then you'd have to, I guess, argue, why aren't we falling into it? Why isn't it heating us too much? How is it moving?
Actually,
I don't think it would
there's a
move.
pretty good theory about that, actually. The exactly what you're talking about. Why don't we fall in towards the center of it, right? So they talk about it being like an eggshell, right? So or there's one theory, there's two theories actually. So one theory is there are many concentric rings inside of the earth.
I like that one, like a matryoshka, like a Russian doll.
A Russian nesting doll.
Yeah.
Exactly. So inside of all these gravitational points, because the earth isn't actually a completed circle, it actually has holes and an access point through the center of it, right?
Yes.
From north to south. That's the whole belief of hollow and tunneled earth or tunnel earth, whatever they call it. Tunnel earth is another version.
Tunnel earth is a whole nother version.
Yeah, a whole nother version. But that makes more sense with the rings, concentric rings, because then each ring has its own gravity pushing you the direction of the gravitational pull. So the inner ring would push you up against the wall. The next outer ring would push you to the ground. The next inner ring would push you to the wall. You know what I mean? It'd be like ceiling, floor, ceiling, floor, ceiling, floor. Pretty interesting idea, because the way that a gravitational loop works, going through the earth as opposed to being around the earth, because most people.
So the idea is that gravity is an external force, kind of like cosmic ray, like
almost like a magnetic field as opposed to a circular field that we believe it to be.
So
which they have kind of proven to be true. Because when you go to the North Pole, obviously the compass doesn't point north anymore.
Exactly.
It's got to point some direction, right?
It kind of just finds depending.
So if it's pointing dead center down into the ground, that must mean that if you're in the South Pole, it has to point down center of the ground, right? That means, in theory, that gravity is actually enveloping from north to south, not from like surrounding. You know what I mean? Radially as opposed to circumferentially.
Yeah. So let me ask this: is what you're saying that this picture,
or how I understand it and imagine it? I mean, I'm probably full of crap, but it made sense when I said it in my head.
I think, and I'm not sure if this is what you mean, but what we're talking about is kind of the idea of, the top and the bottom. We can say the North and South Pole, each Arctic has a hole, an entrance into the bottom, and that idea of the way the gravity actually works, quote unquote, I do see a correlation with truth. I see that these lines that are drawn, they actually do resemble the magnetic field of the Earth as it moves around, but it also does what it does, being generated from the center. Again, so far as what I've learned.
The best way I heard it described was take an orange, peel it, and look how an orange is designed. And that's how gravitation lines are, like the slices of an orange with that line, how they look. Exactly like that.
I can see that, absolutely.
I was like, man, that makes sense. And when you talk about tunnel Earth or hollow Earth, I'm like, that makes total sense. Like, I could see how that would work.
Well, I mean, with gravity and stresses and everything, I mean, we already have tectonic plates, and they're not like straight up and down. It's not like you slam it like one of those chocolate oranges. It's like rip it apart like an actual orange, And so they're
exactly,
it's not clean pieces. Just so that is, nothing in nature really is 90-degree angles that often, you know what I mean? Or is it? Or wait, there's like the Fibonacci sequence, which it has the ratios. It's built on ratios, not exact dimensions, degrees, right? I just lost your audio, pal.
No, I'm sorry. I was talking to my kids.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was, I mean, it kind of, it led me to believe, like, so if, that's kind of hard to describe. So if the way that we think of gravity being circumference right now and everything is pulling to the center of the Earth, right?
Yeah.
That would mean that everything, even our points of navigation, north and south, when you went to the farthest north point, it would continually point north. No matter where you were, like once you got to the farthest north point, it would have to point straight up. Because, well, in theory, it's like it would have to point straight. I mean, not straight up, but straight out, because there is no further north that you could go. Right. But essentially, every account that I've read has been when you get to the North Pole, the needle goes nuts.
When you get to the North Pole, the needle goes nuts. And
spinning in no certain direction. I mean, Jack Sparrow style. So
okay, all right. When he didn't know what he wanted, but that's a whole other thing. That is fascinating.
Whole different episode.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about that.
I'm not sure about anything after reading all these and listening to this stuff. I'm like, man, it kind of distorted my view of gravity. I was like, man, that actually makes a lot more sense to have a tunnel going through Earth and the way that gravity works now that we have it.
Again, the thing about that is this tunnel that they're talking about. I don't think it makes as much sense because to me, the tunnel is just in the place that the magnetic field actually is. And
not necessarily actual, like a hollow, like a donut.
Yeah.
But like a gravitational tunnel.
Yeah. That's fascinating. But now it kind of seems, again, this seems to, and maybe I'm just so brainwashed by the science establishment that this sounds like it would have to be intentionally applied from outside, almost like the way this gravity works. It seems to be tantamount on maybe some external will of saying they want to wrap gravity rather than high amounts of mass spinning throughout the universe generate a field, and we can, which is what magnetism would be. And so there kind of is a tunnel. If we could figure out a way to use that tunnel and traverse it, I guess we would have the ability to use a tunnel in a way. But again, that sounds like Buckaroo Banzai to me, right? Because he had even the oscillation overthruster, and he drove through the mountain, right?
Right. Yeah.
Love that movie, man. Gosh.
Mr. Big Booty. John Big Booty. So funny. Yeah, man. It makes total sense to me. I think too, like if that theory is correct, wormholes and all that makes a lot more sense too.
Well, I don't think that that's related. I think that that's a completely separate thing.
But I think the whole gravity in wormholes, or how wormholes are being sucked through, and continual, like a perpetuation of gravity being sucked through and light and everything, makes a lot more sense the way that they describe it.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't know if I see a connection in that one personally, but that hollow earth idea with the concentric rings, that one I know the least amount of. Now, when I think of the hollow earth, I kind of think of it in, hey, if you're brand new to this show, I'm going to make a lot of references to a movie here and there. So if you've seen the latest Godzilla, right? It's Godzilla versus King Kong versus Godzilla. Right? So that latest one that they made, they traveled to Inner Earth. And Inner Earth is where the most primal, magical, it's Vril. So I think I'm going to sidetrack this a little bit. I wasn't planning on it, but the Hollow Earth theory, I think, is what the King Kong, this monsters, this kaiju verse, if you will, is going to be about, where it seems like that this magical, this glowing power source, in fact, also what they are saying is what generates the flame, that nuclear, that irradiated flame from Godzilla, that seems to be Vril. Because now, if you go to the center of the earth, this does lead into some other things too. In the center of Agartha, in the center of the earth, a lot of these representations, they, I tend to gravitate, pardon the pun if there is one in there, toward like the theories of the civilizations that have access to a higher technology or an energy source, which they refer to, as the Vril, which again, that idea comes from the 1800s and was taken and used for horrible things, but
right.
I think that's what they're doing with the Kaijuverse. I think that this blue energy that they're using, it seems to be Vril. Whether they're going to say it or not, it's an obvious alluding to for me.
A lead into it, right?
And then I guess Iron Sky. There's a fun movie talking about
bring that up too. Yeah,
Iron Sky, the second one, The Coming Race, right?
Yeah.
That one was funny. It was funny.
There's a funny theory too about Hitler escaping to Inner Earth, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you see that too?
Oh yeah, I've known about that.
That was an interesting one. I read that one a little bit, and I was like, okay, I guess.
Would you hear about that one? I want to hear it from yours, because a lot of the reason why we do this is I've been looking into so many of these weird theories for so long, and I've heard it 3 or 4 different ways. You know what I mean? Hey, that whole Inner Earth. The whole concept of Inner Earth and Hollow Earth and the escape down there, that's only even around in the first place as a cover story because they were hanging out in sunny Argentina the whole time. I've heard so many, but I want to hear what you're saying. Yeah.
So the one that I read up on was basically because the German, it wasn't the Nazi movement back then, but I forget what it was called. I should look that up. But the whole movement before they were called the Nazis
The
was
German
to just,
National Socialist Party, I believe, right?
I don't want to.
Or the
It
something
wasn't
like
that.
that.
It was a scientific thing. Basically, it was completely innocuous, like not even based on war or anything like that. It was basically to find answers. They were going in search of inner Earth and looking for that sort of a thing,
Yeah.
and looking for different artifacts and stuff like that that they thought would hold power, basically.
Yeah.
So they weren't really looking for it for war purposes, but looking for power and better knowledgement and stuff like that. And then the Nazi propaganda kind of crept into there.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, at the end of the war, what happened was they had all this technology that they had, started to create and make, and one theory was they had UFOs.
Yes.
So they used UFOs to go down into Middle Earth, the opposite end, by the way. So there's an end of North Middle Earth, and then there's a south end of Middle Earth.
Hollow Earth, Middle Earth.
I'm sorry, Middle Earth.
Middle Earth. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm mixing theories.
For the record,
fantasies.
Middle Earth. Middle Earth
Yeah.
is for sure fantasy.
Whoa!
Okay,
I don't know about
I'm
for
sorry.
sure.
I'm
Calm
so
down
sorry.
with all that for sure.
All right, perhaps the prophet J.R.R. Tolkien knew more than we will ever.
Proposed fantasy. Let's just say it like that.
All right.
Don't crash my dreams. Don't crash my dreams. Anyways, Inner Earth. Excuse me. I appreciate that. Inner Earth. Essentially, there's two sides of it, and they went to the southern side and hid out there, where there are less likely to be encountered with the people of Agartha or Patala or
Shambhala.
There's like Shambhala or all these other like versions, because all those people stay more northern.
Yeah,
is what the theory is, which is an interesting theory, because it says basically that the northern side of Inner Earth is the place of eternal summer. Did you see that too?
The place of eternal summer. Okay.
Yeah, whereas the southern side has a mix of both summer and a cooler climate, not winter, but a cooler climate.
Now, is that basically kind of a reference to the positions on the planet that have extreme days, nights?
Exactly what I'm thinking, because at that time that's all they knew. So it makes more sense to them, I guess, even though if the way that we're looking at it is the sun is in the center of the earth, molten like we are believing in Earth to be, there shouldn't be a dark spot. Is the way I look at it, right? I mean,
well,
it should be eternal sunshine.
If the sun is in the middle, I don't understand. I don't understand a lot about the way the physics of this whole thing would work. I'm going to be honest. But I imagine that I don't know how the clouds would work, but I imagine there would have to be clouds somehow that would form. Perhaps there is a concentric circle, which is a half sphere, which blocks out half for half at a time.
So like
what if there's a floating rock, or what if it's the moon?
Yeah, okay, I'm with that.
Maybe the moon really is the other face of the sun, and it doesn't matter if you've seen them in two at the same place at the same time. Superman was also fast enough to make Clark Kent on the ground, right, during the press conference, and Superman was up. Oh, look at him! He's up there.
The other theory or other book that I was reading, I just remembered it. It's called Red Sun, Dark Moon. And basically it's one side is a red glowing sun in the center of Inner Earth. The other side is a stone. And the stone, or they spin, so you always have a day and a night sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Now the timing of that wasn't a 24-hour timing. It was a lot longer, which meant that the people grew a lot bigger and a lot stronger, which I'm sure we'll go into that. The people of Agartha and Patala being, 12 to 15 foot tall is what all the things that I've read.
I've heard different accounts of that as well. I've heard accounts of the tall races of the inner or hollow earth. Perhaps they're Neanderthalic, or they
Nephilim.
Nephilim is another that. So I'll be honest. There are certain words
That made so much sense to me. It was crazy.
There are certain words that like I do tend to look for the ones where people try to stick to science. The moment people say like if they say Nephilim, then that adds certain connotations that just giants doesn't. Do you know what I mean? But I can see where the idea of Nephilim come from if there were giants. But if we're talking Nephilim, that's a whole other episode too.
Well, you know, I guess it looks like it leads me to believe how you look at Nephilim. Are you looking at Nephilim from the Bible basis? Or are you looking at Nephilim as in the word, the Sanskrit word of giant person?
I'm looking at it in the way today. I think that we could say giant, or I think Nephilim carries a biblical connotation with it. I don't think that.
I think nowadays, yes.
Nowadays,
I think back then, maybe not so much. That's how I kind of look at it too. Absolutely. I look at it from both directions because I have a scriptural background, and I look at it from a scientific mind where I'm like, well, the word for giant was Nephilim or Nephilim, or I forgot how you exactly pronounce it, but
Nephilim,
Nephilim,
yeah,
you're right, Nephilim,
and so there's that, but because of our word is giant, and the word Nephilim is specific in our day and age to that biblical connotation. So I would say that and to me, I don't know about 12 feet. Is that big enough? Like, really? It's 12 feet? Is that
it says 12 to 15. I mean, think about it. If you're 6'6" and someone's 12 feet tall,
that's twice as big.
You're staring at their belly button when you're standing up. Like, that's insane. That's a huge person. No, that's like you looking at a giraffe.
Now,
but it's a human, you know what I mean?
Did you ever see that video? This is a bit of a slight sidetrack, but there's that the red giant that they showed. They said that might have been King Gilgamesh or something.
No, what?
If you look up King Gilgamesh's tomb found, you're going to find what appears to be a bearded Mesopotamian lordly red-skinned man who does not appear to be decomposing. I don't know how else to put it, but anyway, no, a lot of times when they talk about inner earth, a lot of things that are mentioned, not just besides giants and all of this, but it is actually blue-skinned people, I think, right? So blue-skinned people with and that would be a little bit more when it starts overlapping with Hyperborea, when it starts overlapping with the Ultima Thule, High Brazil, Atlantis, almost, there tend to be giants.
Aztecian, all them.
Giants with blue skin or blue tattoos head to toe, which, we know that apparently, I don't know if we've ever found any remains of actual Pictish people, but we do find their old settlements, and we find, what little we can of them from the time, and we do know that they are reported to be, bigger than normal people, I don't know, 6-7 feet maybe, really, and just covered in tattoos. And so people have believed that the Picts may have been descendants of wherever it is that these stories are coming from. But yeah, going back to the Hollow Earth one, with that red sun, wow. That red sun that's a dark rock on the other side of it is what you're saying?
Yeah, so it's like a 50-50 kind of a thing. One side is a red glowing sun. The other side is a dark rock. And the dark rock basically doesn't let light shine through.
Okay.
And it doesn't lead on in the book. I'm only maybe a quarter way in the book because the book is like an hour and a half long. It's a audio book that I'm listening to.
Yeah.
But it's basically not, it's a fiction book, but it's also a book that was written from Admiral Byrd and
this is an Admiral Byrd book.
No, it's written from his diary, basically a usurpation of his diary, or excerpt, excuse me, not usurpation, excerpt of his diary, and a small portion.
I shall take his diary and I will claim it as my own.
Exactly, excerpt. But there's another group of people man, I forgot their name now. It's not the Olafs. They basically went into Tibet. It's a married couple, and they were gone. You know what
The
I'm talking about?
yes. That
They were
married
even have
couple.
they even
Oh
have
my
pictures
goodness.
of them
Yes. Oh,
doing
hold
this,
on.
which
Let
was
me
pretty
see.
wild to see.
I
But
can't
yeah,
remember which one it was. Yeah.
it's from their diaries too, and how they went there and were found how to get into inner earth through the Tibetan people before it was taken over. And basically all those people in Tibet that were killed, there was millions of people in Tibet that were killed to kind of keep this a secret.
Yeah.
Essentially it's kind of a wild story, and part of it was because they went up there and were like, hey, we know about this, can you show us the way? And they're like, sure, we'll show you since you're nice, and showed them to the entrance, and they went in and were gone for like 6 months, and then came back out and wrote this story about it, and nobody believed them. And then they were like, okay, we'll go back again, came back to America, and we're like, hey, we're gonna find Middle Earth, and we'll bring
The
back accounts of it.
Rorks. The Rorks.
Yeah, Warwick's. Yeah, thank
The
you.
Rorks.
Yeah,
It took me a second. Nicholas and Helena Rourke.
yeah, it's a great story if you get to read about
Yeah.
them. Very interesting how they were very defiant and like, hey, we're gonna do it again, kind of
Yeah.
a thing. It was awesome, awesome little story.
And there were two Russian expats who
They were
were
actually on the lam, man, from Russia.
and didn't their I believe that was it their sons? I can't remember exactly. Was it their sons who carried on a legacy of this of the
They told the
Tibetan?
story.
Okay.
Yeah, they told the story after they went. So they came back the second time and told the story, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're insane!" So they're like, "We're going back, and we're never coming back."
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the book Paradise Found and all that came from,
Okay.
because the son started talking about it, and then more people were interested in it back then.
Yeah. Alrighty. Yeah, that's a really interesting one. The, the the other reason a lot of this comes from this late 18th century, early 19th century, and kind of carries over throughout that, Beaver Cleaver, leave it to Beaver and everything's just fine, and the American dream and white picket fences everywhere, and hey, a steak on every plate type idea, the late 1800s and early 1900s was really a mentality of like seeking a golden age that was
It was
also
all about
believed
exploration.
to have
Yeah,
been from the past, yeah.
and it was a magical time, like where they
And the
started to
spiritualism,
believe. Yeah,
it
they
was in the
started believing
highest
in a lot of spiritual stuff, deities and
deities,
people.
yeah, other
Yeah,
creatures.
people saying that, hey, this rock is empowered and will make you do things.
Hmm.
People believed it back then. They were like,
Yeah.
really, let's go find it. It
It,
wasn't like, yeah, shut up. It was like, really, let's go find that thing.
and as time went on, that spiritualist movement, I believe that's what it was, the spiritualism movement and everything, that had Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he was a major, and his one of his best friends, Harry Houdini, was a staunch debunker. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, right.
and this is from a time where you think that the man who's the illusionist might try to pull one over on us that way, but nope. Someone said my mom. You don't talk about my mom. I hate all you people now. I mean, that was it.
Right.
He just nope. You don't talk about my mom. And it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I love that
Uh-oh.
story. But he would call out people like that, and because of all of these mentalities, that's why the Agartha. But even again in the 1800s, now there's a book. Did you get around to seeing Edward Bulwer Lytton at all? Lytton?
No, I didn't read the his book, but I did look at his story a little bit.
Okay, so
Very, very, very small.
yeah,
Look at it.
it's one of the it's this is the story that he wrote. Well, first, Bulwer Lytton he's famous for not just saying he he coined the phrase "pen is mightier than the sword," and he also is the person who like iconoclastized. He put it on the map. It was a dark and stormy night. So the two things that he really contributed to the major zeitgeist of like, no matter what, if you say that, it'll, you're referencing him. Those are his two big things. But he also wrote a book that it'd probably still be a really big book, honestly, if things in the 20s, 30s, and 40s had gone a little different. He wrote a book about the inner earth. There's a lot to this. story, but he wrote a book about Inner Earth that is, is told as I tell you this story based on the conversation I had with the man who lived the tale. And as he writes this, it's about a man who gets abducted and then taken to Hollow Earth, and he's led there by a guide who seems to, he resembles both, like, aliens and also in a way kind of like a goblin, kind of like a duende, or a Rongshong, or all of these sort of little people, elvish type, but not the tall and beautiful, Lothlorien Legolas type. More of like the little.
Hey, that's a Middle Earth reference.
Exactly. You brought it there. And just before we get too far into this, I'll just say it. Star Wars. Okay, going away from that.
Star Wars. Moving on.
There, moving on. Star Wars. So, the little elf type, the gnomish elf type. The tricksters, the impish sort, and how did I get off to that? Because anyway, so in his book, it's this kind of impish man who's leading him through and introducing him to the races or the queen, and she is like, as a human, I think she had wings, but there's so many. It kind of resembles Gelflings. Anyway, this is where the idea.
What? Okay.
Yeah, it kind of.
You got me now.
In my mind. Ooh, hook, line, and sinker. All right.
Right.
All right. And I'll just say this right after that. Now that's how I got them. If you go into it thinking it's going to remind you of the Gelflings, I don't think it will anymore. It was just something that pops in my mind when I think of
you tease.
when I think of stuff for some reason, like, well, of course the girls have wings. I don't know why. That's just always in my mind. Fucking.
It's because it was said, and then it's stuck in you forever.
So good though.
It's such a good written line. Yeah.
Well, of course you don't have wings. You're a boy.
Duh, you're a boy. That's crazy.
What do you think? Anyway, there's that. Creature leading him through, and then their peoples are called, I believe they are called the Ariani, or they may have called themselves the Aryans, the ancient. And then this is again from the 1800s, before it was taken, before the 1930s
out
and 40s.
Of context.
Yeah,
right.
before it was taken out of context.
A lot of things was taken out of context, by the way.
And a lot of
even
major...
the swastika image, not an image of hate before they got a hold of it, but
exactly. But everything
kind of changed it.
It was, and honestly, as much as Helena Blavatsky is definitely, pat her on the back for getting people, thinking about this kind of stuff, sure, but she also, there's something about her writing that inspired everything from the 30s and 40s. You know what I mean? All of that stuff. They referenced her. Right. They were like, "That's our girl, HPV." They loved her, and so there's that too. But the theosophy, with like the spiritualism and then the God-given right, quote unquote, mentality, seeking golden age, I guess, you know what I mean? The
need to conquer, right?
Need to conquer, promises that shall be, whatever. That really messed it all up. But originally, this is the book where the idea of an Aryan race, just meaning, I guess it was used as ancient. We're the first peoples, is how
elder people.
Yeah,
that's what I read. Elder people,
exactly.
Aryan elder people.
We're basically the parent species to you. You are like a child species of us, and then of course it got let's check your hair code. Let me see them roots. Anyway, fucking jerks, man, assholes. And that's the nicest way to put it. Let's be honest. But he also talks about them using a power source known as the Vril. So I mentioned it before with, the Hollow Earth, and this power source that may be either there and waiting to be rediscovered, or actively the source of power for this other species or peoples that live there. But Vril, this is the first book where Vril comes from in Bulwer Lytton's book. His book is also called The Coming Race. And so that when I read the book, I'll tell you, I don't know if he meant that they're on their way up here, or if we are the coming race approaching our next step where we become more like the higher knowledge, better, cooler, more peaceful. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember exactly if the coming race referred to us, and us as in mankind, right? Or them, they who live under our parent species race. But it was a very interesting book, and that's where the idea of the Vril come from. And again, going back to that Iron Sky movie, Vril, when they found Vril was basically, it was the sun in the center, and it was like a dripping sun. Remember, it was like
like
sun,
a molten,
but it was dripping, and they would collect it and drink it too and stuff. I don't remember. That movie was just phenomenal. It's time to rewatch it.
It's ridiculous.
They're not paying us anything, and they don't have to. Just go watch that movie. It's probably
shoot us some bucks. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you can do that too. You know what I mean? But
I'll mention it every episode if you do. I don't mind.
Yeah. Please.
Merchandising.
I'll wear the shirt.
Merchandising.
And if you guys actually did make de-albanizer, I just need a shot, just a little bit, so I don't have to go in the sun no more. Because honestly,
right, just a squirt. That's all.
This is a smidge. Funny movie, man.
I actually was reading something to that end that you were talking about. Hang on, let me pull the guy's name.
Edward Bulwer Lytton or Richard Byrd. Talking about the Rourkes.
It's John Cleese Seams. Did you read about him?
John Cleese Seams. This sounds familiar, but I can't.
So this guy is kind of the earliest written accounts of Hollow Earth. Like he's one of the founding people to bring it up.
John Cleese Seams Jr., huh?
Yeah, he goes back to 1817. They
18.
even put a monument. They put a monument up for him. It's insane.
Interesting. And so, yeah, this does predate, but it was the 1800s when people really started getting more into this Hollow Earth. People wanted to explore outer space. They wanted to explore under the water. They wanted to find Atlantis, find that which was lost. It
was really the time of exploration because, you started to have trains. Yeah, exactly. Trains and planes and cars. And it wasn't just like, hey, I got to jump on a horse and ride for the next 5 days to get to the next town. You know what I mean? It was like, we'll hop a plane and we'll be there in a couple days as opposed to a month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The Oregon Trail was gone, so to speak. You know what I mean? Where you're going to lose
diphtheria.
So many people.
I was there.
Exactly.
I was there.
The game,
Third
man.
grade, man.
Horrible. By the way,
horrible aiming. Horrible aiming.
I never brought home a lot of stress.
Never brought home a deer.
It helped me cope with a lot of stress. I'll tell you that.
That's funny.
I'm like, I shot a bear. Oh my god.
Yep. That's hilarious.
We're gonna eat forever. Like, this is a video game, dude. Calm down.
Great game. That was a good one. I'm definitely
the way his was
Symes theory of concentric
the way that guy. Did you see the picture
circular.
that's on his Wikipedia page?
No, actually. Here, I'll go there.
If you scroll down on his Wikipedia page, it kind of shows 2 or 4 C's, 4 C-looking shapes with an inner Earth circle, and then there's an outer Earth circle, but they're all C's because there's a center tunnel that goes through the middle.
It's this monochrome pic, right? Where it looks kind of like a cup because we don't see the bottom.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then I see this one to the right of it. Now, see, again, this one is interesting, and it kind of, I don't understand
that one.
I like
that one.
Sure, I like it too.
Because it makes more scientific sci-fi theory in my brain. It makes me think maybe. Whereas the ones that are donut shaped, I'm like, no. Or even the ones that are globes with giant tubes through them, I'm like, no.
The globes with big tubes?
Yeah, have you seen those? There's
no. What's a globe with a tube on it, or
a tube through it? So like a hollow tube through it. If you scroll down on his page, he has it there too. There's another idea on the right hand side. It says Symes' idea of the Earth.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm on that one. I was having as weird as it is.
If you go to his,
yeah. Here, I'll find that one right now.
Go to the Wikipedia page. But anyways, yeah, it shows that picture. It's kind of an interesting one that they think like essentially that's why, like even now to nowadays theories, that you cannot Google Earth like the dead top of um the North Pole and the dead top of the South Pole because there's so much gravity that it literally distorts the vision and distorts, excuse me, cameras and all that sort of stuff.
I can see
It's
that if you were to fly
it makes sense.
I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it makes sense because of if you were to, because that again is the path of the magnetosphere actually traveling, and
Yeah, you're literally in
you
the
know,
vortex V of the worst of the worst. You know what I mean?
yeah, you also shouldn't magnetize your credit card in the same way, or
Right, right.
we used to freak
Your hard
out
drive
about running a hard drive through the X-ray machine at a
destroying it. Yeah.
destroy it at the airport, all right? And you're just going to Cleveland. But no, it's like, okay, a satellite flying through the magnetosphere generated by what I kind of think is, spinning liquid
My
iron
brain's like
core that,
my brain's like a black hole sort of an idea of
I mean,
not necessarily of like black hole proportions, but of like a gravity well. Let's call
yeah.
it gravity well, not so much a black hole. Gravity well is probably a better description.
And I do,
But a never ending gravity well.
never ending gravity well, which again, I was going to say that I still think that it is probably spinning liquid magma at the center of the planet. I think I mean, liquid iron at the most center, or who knows? And if I'm wrong, I just want to know. Someone tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not gonna jump on you on this one. I'm gonna leave this one alone.
No
This
math, no abacus.
This is the one episode where the abacus doesn't get broken out.
All right. Well, I guess we're done. Have a good night, everyone. No, I'm
alone.
joking. If he's not going to do
Take
it,
note of that.
if he's not going to do it, then yeah. So I don't know.
But I like the way he talks about it.
Picture.
I mean, even
That's a
even
lot
the
of
way that he
concentric.
talks about
That's a lot of land. There's a lot of concentric.
exactly. It becomes that like child or that nesting doll that we were talking about.
It almost makes me think instead of it being like hollow in that way, it's just layers and layers and layers,
layers.
And there'd be like you can't just get through anywhere because there'd have to be a wall everywhere to support the difference between each individual.
Well, you'd have to find the one time that all the layers line up.
Now,
one time that all the layers line up and get to the center.
Here's what this makes me think
very
of.
center. Anyway,
this makes me think of Greek mythology and the story of Daedalus, right? When
he brings that up, actually.
Okay, there we go. And he built the labyrinth.
In his theory,
I need to read this book then because
yeah.
it makes me think of if you were going to have if you put it in there, that's pretty cool because the Greeks had the idea of Daedalus who was locked in. He had to build the labyrinth for King Minos. You know what I mean to house the Minotaur. And then he escaped with, what was it, his son or his nephew, Icarus, and Icarus, get down from here. Nah! It's hot. It's nice. It's hot up here.
It's a little closer. It's warmer. Yeah,
it's warm.
Up here.
Anyway, yeah. Story of Icarus. It's a good one. That's what it reminds me of with these concentric. If it's not just hollow, and if it's this way where it is the nesting doll, the Matryoshka, the whatever, I think that you'd have to have it would be like the cave idea where there's constant caves. It reminds me of the idea that there's caves all
they talk about that too. Like they talk about that with like the different people that are said to have come from Inner Earth. Did you read up on like all the different tribes and stuff like that?
Well, in America, almost all of the tribes, especially like the Hopi,
80% of the American Indians are said to have come from Inner Earth.
That's what the theories
are. I was like,
are.
what?
Yeah.
I was like, what? I mean, there's the the Mandana, the Chiricahua, the Apache, the Hopi. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was like, holy crap! Like all these people, and there's all these tunnels in Missouri and in Arizona that they say that they came out of, and they haven't been explored because they go so far down. There's not enough oxygen in points.
And that
it's
again,
like, okay, how interesting is that though?
From
how interesting is that too? Like there's a spot on Earth that's deep enough where there's not oxygen.
Well, absolutely, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Or you got to think that what if there was a pocket of oxygen that if you're at a certain depth, if you go too high and the oxygen is too thin, you get a headache. What if you're at a depth where oxygen was compressed? But what happens when you're having too much compressed air. You can get
Right.
you get the
Right.
bends,
Get the
right?
bends. Yeah, the
And
opposite. Yeah.
so our bodies are not quite, so far as we can
Well,
see, if you go
depending upon
deeper.
how big your lungs are, right? Because that's how that works. Is your lungs are pumping the blood through your oxygen fast enough, and if you don't get enough oxygen into your lung, they're not able to create enough circulation through, which makes your brain go into hypoxia, right? So if you were 15 feet tall, in theory, wouldn't your lungs be a lot bigger and be able to?
You'd have to be made of stronger stuff than we are now. I'll admit that.
If you're 15 feet tall, again, I'll bring that up. Wouldn't you be stronger in natural because gravity would be pulling on you more because you're 15 feet tall? And how much would you weigh? You know what I mean?
Now, here's the question. Now, I'm not the biggest or the tallest man in the world, but if there's one thing I know about people who have now, humans, it's called giantism, right? Or
Gigantism, yeah.
Gigantism, hypothyroidism, right?
Elephantitis, all that, yeah.
Now, when you have that, when your body gets to be a certain height, your heart is further from your feet and you get poor circulation. So when my mind thinks about is if you were going to, does living with higher gravity pull the blood further down and say, hey, big people should live closer to the center of the earth because the blood does fall down. You see what I mean? Or would that make it worse?
I see what you're saying.
Would it make it worse?
No, it can't, because if you think about it, if you're bigger, wouldn't all your organs just have to be bigger? So if you're bigger, I mean, if you think about it, like an elephant's heart is or an elephant, excuse me, a giraffe's heart is gigantic.
Yes,
because it has to pump blood from such a small or from such a lower level all the way up to its brain.
Yeah, it's got to pump all the way up that neck.
So it's gigantic to support that. So I mean, you wouldn't really like be passing out or anything like that, because you would think in proportion to your size, you'd have to match to fit all of that.
There have to be proportion. There'd have to be.
I mean, you brought the abacus out. I can't. I stand here.
I knew it. If you put it on the table,
he drew it out of me.
Stares at the abacus. He has to pick up the abacus. He's like a little kid at the doctor's office. I gotta move these beads to the other side.
God,
I know, right? So I'm not sure now whether or not there are people down there. I think that there's definitely going to be pockets. Whether or not we do find pockets. Back to the other thing you were saying, and this is going to lead into the next part. Not just are there stories on this hemisphere of the world about all life came out of the ground because that's how we survived. I'll mention quickly that the Hopi word for the ant people, the people who brought them under the ground. I don't know if you ever saw this. Did you know what their word is? It's Anu for ant, and Naki for right. And so they actually have the same word as the ancient Sumerians for whatever.
Sumerians and also the Buddhists believe somewhat of that.
It's a bit weird, I mean, and I don't know how much I want to believe any idea about Anunnaki or anything. I love the idea. I love all these ideas. Well, I mean, it's obviously the truth, but I mean, whether or not,
I don't know what else to think.
It's canon to the whole sitch. Whether or not any of that, yeah, man.
Did you read about? I'm sorry, I know I derailed you. I'm sorry. Did you read about the children of Wolfput?
The children of Wolfput. Yes,
that one had me like, this is real for a split second.
Yes. I
was like, holy crap! They have like accounts and readings and like all these things about these two kids with green skin that came out of the earth, and they have no idea where they came from, didn't speak any language that they knew of, would only eat these green beans and certain fruits. I was like, yo, this is crazy how many different cultures believe this.
So
it was in Europe and in England. So
it was in Britain. It was in a place
Suffolk County.
In Suffolk County, yeah. And so that comes from, I believe, the 16th or 15th or 16th century, maybe, and maybe a little bit later. But there was a time, and I hate to be the debunker here because I usually want to be the true believer, and especially I've been looking into the Children of Woolpit for a long, long time. Like that, this is one of the ideas. They say, oh, we came from the land of Saint Martin, right, or Saint Martin. Saint Martin's land is what they called it, I believe.
Right, 12th century, yeah.
12th century even. Okay, so this isn't even older. So during that time, there was a Finnish colony not too long, and there was also some Finnish racism. You know what I mean? They were, and so, and no, it's for real.
Call it ignorance.
Ignorance as hell. And so there was like a Finnish town that was like destroyed, I guess. Like people got mad at the Finnish people and like sacked the town or whatever. And the idea is maybe these kids probably escaped because the church was the Church of Saint Martin, right? It was the Church of Saint Martin. And I mean, if these kids were speaking Finnish, if they had to travel through the forest and they weren't eating any iron, their body would have got green from whatever they were able to eat. Which actually the green skin sickness was a pretty prevalent. But I think if the kids could have spoke English, we never would have heard this story personally. But
I mean, the way that I read it,
the most fascinating. I brought up the Manitored, but
right, the way that I read
I love them.
Was these children came, right, and they basically came out of the forest, and nobody knew who they were because obviously back then you knew all your neighbors. Nobody knew who they were. They weren't speaking English. They were like starving basically and spoke gibberish. Nobody could understand them.
Finnish.
Yeah, right. And they
no, I mean stop your story. Kidding.
They weren't like no, it's funny. They weren't like hateful to these kids. They were like, "Who are you? What's going on?"
They were concerned. It actually
just like they raised them.
It is a really beautiful story. It is a beautiful story.
Hey, let's figure these kids out. And then they're like, "Oh, these kids aren't from anywhere on our lands." Like,
yeah, they didn't find green kids and say, "Kill it." They don't speak our language. They're not the same color as us.
Yeah.
Get rid of those things.
Like we hate them because they're Finnish children and they're skinny Finnish children. It's like, no, the children came and they were like, this isn't a normal anything. You know what I mean?
Well, also whatever was happening in a couple towns over, this town that they found, they might have been like, what do you mean? What's wrong with Finnish people? You know what I mean? Like they could this could have been just a chill town, but it is a good story. They take care of the kids.
The thing that I like too is like the kids were there long enough to learn English.
Eventually, the boy passed. The boy passed with
it says that they learned English and were able to talk about where they came from, and then the male or the boy passed. But it talks about them talking about inner Earth and how the sun shines all the time and all these different creatures and stuff. It's like, you got to think for me, because I have kids, like kids are innocent. They usually tell the truth when they're that young. Like they don't know anything but the truth. They don't know how to be deceptive. So their mind is just like, hey, this is the truth. This is what happened. Now that you've taught us how to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Especially since you kept us alive sort of feel, you know what I mean?
I absolutely don't think that now the way I hear the story is that the young boy, the brother to the girl, he passed before he was able to speak English, is the way I had heard the story. And that the girl did survive, grow to womanhood, learn, take a husband as well. And, her skin color changed back to normal or, to whatever it should have been. It wasn't green anymore. Again, it could have been.
It didn't stay green, right?
And as she got older, now, again, my idea is kind of, if a child goes through something very traumatic, and then you finally show up somewhere where people kind of are venerating you, like, "Ooh, you're mystical. Maybe where'd you come from?" You got to keep that shit going. I tried getting my brother out of this town, so we got out of there without getting burned. He died when we got here, but these people were nice to us. They were not trying to just feed us trash and burn us, like and. I think that trauma can make people's mind warp a little bit. And how do you find the right word for
Stockholm syndrome kind of thing?
There's that. Yeah. There's that whole aspect as well. It could be the part she needed to play. That's what she thought. I don't know how.
I mean, I guess I look at it because
I also never saw it as all that outlandish, any of the claims she made.
I think it's just because for me, I'm completely like, what do they call it, co-signing the story, because I'm like, they're children, and children
Yeah,
generally aren't the way to be conniving and be like, hey, if I keep saying this, these people will keep feeding me. They're just like, we just want to be fed. We don't know. We just want to live.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not the kind of like entities, I'll call them, because adults, are like, hey, if we keep this story up,
I
we'll
do.
keep
I
getting
do love this
food,
story
man.
though.
You know what I
I
mean?
have
The
always.
story is
Oh
interesting,
no, no! I don't think that it was an
like not
ultimatum.
malicious. Yeah.
No, I don't think anyone forced them to tell this story. I just
No, I don't
think
believe
that a
force. I
child.
think
I think a child's memory, suffering through something, and then growing up, and then not even really understand. I don't even speak the language I did when I was a little kid. How do I even describe any of this stuff? And everyone keeps telling me this sounds fantastic, but it's just another language. I don't
I mean,
know.
you would only be able to describe it to the way that you learn how to speak. So, I mean, in theory, wouldn't you just be using their words
In
to
a
describe
way.
it? It's the whole Nephilim giant thing,
Exactly. If everyone kept using the word mystical to you to refer to you and where you're from, then you'd start saying, I'm from a mystical land.
Well, like same thing with like the whole Japanese thing, like demon, monster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they say demon, we say monster,
Yeah.
sort of thing. You know what I mean?
And it isn't viewed the same. The
But yeah,
danger.
our view of it's like that's a total, a spiritual, sort of a thing, religious thing. Whereas they're
They
like,
have
no,
that,
those are
yeah.
just scary things. You know what I mean? Those are just all scary things or demons.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's kind of lost in translation. But I think just the story being that, these kids came out of nowhere that nobody knows about is very interesting, only because back then it wasn't like you could do just a bunch of travel. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you could just hop on a boat and travel across, the sea. Like if you did, there was all these records of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They had, every person that ever traveled. First of all, you got to be rich.
You had
Rich
to
as
be.
hell to rich as hell to travel across, the oceans and stuff like that. So they weren't that because
Yeah.
they were starving. You know what I mean? And it's like they were found in the woods essentially. So it's like that kind of a thing is like either they're aliens or they're inner earthers.
And 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 a lot of these inner earth encounters, they resemble one for one alien encounters. They resemble one for one just about any other, again, like, encountering an entity. People will say that there's lights associated with all sorts of goblins or creatures, wendigos, skinwalkers, anything. The lights in the
Right.
sky can
Right.
pop up and become a part of that. It 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 makes me really curious. There was another person who had a very similar story, and I'm trying to find his name as well. He kind of wrote kind of like they were kind of almost like pulp fiction books, pulp fiction
Oh, really?
detective, um, inner earth. Let's see if I type that in the pulp secret of the earth. Da, 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 da. I'm trying to find this guy's name. It was uh Charles Beale. No, there was an older writer, and I cannot remember. Sharp. It's Shaver. Robert Shaver. Shaver. Inner Earth Shaver. Here we go. Let me find this. Inner Earth Shaver. Now, this is the guy, Richard Shaver. Yeah, Richard Shaver. Now, Richard Shaver is the one I think I was trying to tell you about earlier.
There's a lot of Richards
It's a
in
lot of
inner earth
Richard. Richard
stories,
Byrd.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Richard.
Geez.
What was it? It was John Cleves? But no. What was the Rourke? Was it Richard Rourke as well? Was
That was his son, was Richard.
his son was Richard Rourke, right? That's crazy. Yeah, a lot of Richards going into the. I got the wrong name. You know what I mean? Unless there's a golden fleece on the Isle of Colchis, I'm not gonna find anything. That's just me, though. Again, thanks for the Greek reference. You're welcome. Shh, not now. Anyway, so
Even the
Richard
Greeks have a
Shaver,
reference to Hollow Earth, by the way.
they do. They speak about Hades, and their Hades very much resembles a cave system as well. Again, but whether or not it's adjacent
Yeah, the
to
underworld and all that.
the
Yeah.
the, the labyrinth, they have multiple ones. I think that the
I mean,
labyrinth
even the
almost.
Jewish culture talks about it. Like it goes on Sheol.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is now as you were saying, the native peoples of this part of the world almost almost all have a story about, yeah, of course, our people came out of the earth. We were led into the earth and then we were brought back out, right? Now, in the Mediterranean and the Middle East, we actually find places like in Malta, in Turkey. It was not Mohenjo-daro. Mohenjo-daro is a place in Pakistan, I believe. I can't remember, but it's there was a story in Turkey about an underground city, and no one had ever heard it. And this guy had he tapped his wall and was like, "What? There's no wall back there." And then all of a sudden he opens it up and there's an entrance to an entire now. Like, he didn't know, he found like this entire city. It's an entire city
Really?
in
Wow.
oh man,
In his walls.
in his
Crazy.
walls, and now they're like, I mean, now here's me though. If I all of a sudden like knocked on a door in my house and I found out that I had my own underground city, never would have told anybody.
I'm not telling
sorry.
nobody. Yeah,
Nobody
I'm
knows.
being greedy on that one.
Not one person is gonna find out about the discovery of the. I'm sorry, I am that selfish.
Ozelandia? Are you kidding me?
It's like, wait a minute. You found this thing? Yeah, hell yeah. Where's it go? Where's it lead? Let's check it out. Like by the time it's like 2150 and my grandkids rediscover it, and it's just gonna be like, it's like great peps,
like, you've been here this long?
like what is this? What is this thing? That looks like a Sega Genesis. What's that? You know what I mean? Like it's craziness. Did he really build a movie theater in here? And then they'd find out, like, I can't believe he put a movie theater that was probably the spot where they would like make the announcements that echoed through everywhere. And I'd be like, yeah, but the acoustics were great when I was playing. When I was playing COD, when I was playing COD. Yo, I heard where everyone was coming from. Nobody snuck up on me. Anyway, that's right. But then in Malta as well. In Malta, there are, I mean, again, you travel down into these cities, and the way that they were built as well, absolutely phenomenal. They have echo chambers that allow you to speak to people. Areas to have water, to be to water drawn from the very bottom.
Yeah,
of
exactly.
a well. And so if someone tries to come in, oh, hey, we're sneaking up in. Okay, fine. We can block you off at the very top level. And you also get blocked off from our water, which we're coming from down here. We've got water, homie. You don't. Have fun trying to get in our city under the ground. I loved that. I mean, it seemed to have a military strategy, of course. I mean, in a time where if you don't have walls and you're afraid of the neighboring city states.
Well, I think it was like we were talking about.
Like we were talking
about when we were discussing what we wanted to bring up for this conversation. Yeah. Like there's if you think about it, so all these civilizations were well more advanced than what we were at that same time. Mm-hmm. So the theory is, if they kept advancing at the rate that they were advancing, how hard is it to believe that they have some way of either stopping a satellite feed or a visual, video feed just into their cities,
interrupting it,
and just distorting the picture or making the picture look like nothing? Like, how hard would that be? I mean, it's totally Wakanda.
Yeah, I mean? Absolutely.
If you think about it, it's Wakanda. How easy is that? Because I mean, and I reference another movie, but
it does kind of bring up the idea of what would have. Again, it's kind of the first multiverse idea that people were really thinking about, which kind of comes down to, what would things have been like if we never had these dark ages? They really, really, really fucked us all up. You know what I mean? Like, what if we just accepted running water and a shower when it came out? You know, I mean, they've got irrigation systems and pipes back in ancient Rome 2,000 years ago. And
Yeah,
we
well
know that they
before
had it well before that,
aqueducts and all
even.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, even this cave with the well that I'm talking about, they understood the necessity of having a water source underground. And I mean, this is planned out. So, like, it's weird that the Dark Ages happened at all. Like, the more I look into history, it is like,
or
how?
follies, man. I get it.
Follies of man, I get that. I just don't understand how, like, man, you let it happen though. Anyway, still, at this point, where would we be? Where would we be? We'd have had the
Yeah, how
industrial
much more
age
advanced could we be in? Yeah,
yeah, in the year 1000 maybe we would have been
I mean,
having flying
I look
cars
at it
and
like
living
that.
on Mars already.
I look at it the same thing. Like, look at how much our industry changed because of wars.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the need for having major industry and major reproduction and stuff like that. We created factories for that reason. You know what I mean? And then we're like, oh wow, we can make tanks really fast. Then once there's no need for tanks, like, oh hey, by the way, we can make cars. You know what I mean?
But
Like, why aren't we using that like for something good? It's like that did happen to some degree in the wrong order. Yes.
well, the the industrial age had begun, and again, as soon as we discover what we're capable of as human beings, the first group to co-opt the idea and turn it to their own devices,
The one with the biggest money
it's a military
or biggest
branch.
nuts.
It's
Biggest nuts.
it's tough guys. It's tough guys who, at the very
Knuckle
least,
draggers, right?
force you to work for them now. In the worst situation, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, you're Jesse Pinkman, you know what I mean? In the bottom of
Right.
the, being forced to make blue, right? That, and there you
Right.
go. But then, at best, government comes in and says, your research is now top secret. You work for us. And if anyone asks, you are a florist.
Right, exactly.
Right? What do you do all day? I arrange posies and dandies and flizzlewits. I made that last one up, but
I believe in it still.
yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing like what we're talking about. Like the people who have discovered all these things. I mean, Bird and Seisman and all them. Like when they came out with their information, they weren't welcomed. They weren't like, oh wow,
of
let's
course.
go look into this. It was like, hey, put these people in psychiatric things, make them gaslight them, make them think that they're crazy, make their family think
It's
that they're
Plato's
insane.
allegory of the cave. Exactly.
Exactly. And then you know what? We'll take all that information and hide it away forever.
Hide it away
because
forever.
We're not sure what to do with it.
It doesn't suit our purpose.
It doesn't suit the narrative.
Leaders. It doesn't suit the narrative. And so they'll get rid of that. So and again,
and that's what this podcast is about. I'm just kidding.
As long as it doesn't suit the narrative, we're gonna harp on it.
Right.
I understand that, if that's the truth of it and everything. Also, it was right before all of this that right before World War II happened that even Germans signed the Antarctica Accord or the Antarctica Act, the Subarctic Act, where all the rest of the countries said, okay, yeah,
it's nobody's, but it's everybody's.
Antarctica is just for research, so we can't go there. And that's
I think a lot of part of that was it was so hard to get to that all the world or all the major powers knew that only the major powers could get there. So by signing that, and this is just my theory. I mean, I could be completely full of crap. But if you think about it, nobody else can get there who can afford it, who can have, produce these vehicles that can actually withstand these areas and these conditions. And also they don't have food enough and all that sort of stuff to supplies to support a expedition of that type. So it's like, yeah, sure, we'll sign it and we'll go up there and nobody will know, because unless you can actually come up here, how would you know that we're not here already? Kind of a thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the moon race, nobody talked about it until it was too late.
Yeah, but even though there are flags planted on the moon, nobody's told these independent space companies that they're not allowed to attempt to build a ship that can take them outside of
Well,
Earth.
outside of Earth's atmosphere, yeah, but you got to
Yeah.
think about it. The reason for that. So right now, what happened was back in the day, who was the first, or who were the first people in Earth or out of Earth atmosphere? It wasn't Americans. You
No.
know what I mean? So after that, they're like, well, we're gonna create a national aerospace, and you know what I mean, like a thing that is gonna be for everybody, but it's in America, so everybody join America on the space race. It's like, well, I guess you already lost, so now you're trying to get to the moon to prove a point.
But they
You know
got
what
to
I
the
mean?
moon.
Like,
But what I'm saying is they did not claim the moon as
I
no
mean,
one else is allowed to go there.
no, but I mean, think about it. They pissed on it like a dog by smacking a flag in it. It's like, who
So,
else has gone to the moon? Who
so
else has gone to the moon and planted a flag there?
if Elon Musk goes up there, theoretically, let's just be crazy for a
He
minute.
could plant a Tesla flag up there. I mean, yeah, it's not sovereign territory or anything like that. So
what I'm
yeah,
saying
you're
is,
right.
it doesn't matter who plants a flag. What matters is who plants a weapons arsenal, a battalion.
Or who claims it is how I look at it. Who claims that?
Who occupies it? Who lives there? I mean, look, if you went to a
But I mean,
moon
by
and I was
being,
living there, I would just say, squatters' rights, get off my moon. Get
yeah,
out of
but
here.
I mean, look at how we deal with squatters down here.
Oh, I'm not saying I like squatters. I've had my issues.
Exactly.
But,
Exactly. It's one of those things. Like I think just because you're there doesn't make it yours. I mean, that's how. I'm not saying that's how I feel.
I'm
but
not saying that's how I
that's how the
feel.
world works.
That's how the world works.
America.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
the Indians. What Indians? No, this is we're looking for the spice trade market. If you guys could move aside, we're coming through.
Quit talking about inner Earth. It's not part of the narrative.
I'm sorry. Exactly right. Stop talking about it. It's not a thing.
Exactly.
It's not a thing. You know what I mean? So it's a weird thing that happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of how, like, Bird and all those other guys, when they came out with their books and all their stuff, like Bird, which was a great story. I'm still reading his or still listening to his book.
Yeah.
Which you can listen to on YouTube, and LibriVox, which is basically a library Vox. It's like a thing that you can listen to all their books. I'm listening to his book, the Smoky Gods, and I'm almost through it. And it basically talks about he didn't want his diary or any of his information read until he was dead.
Yeah.
And the reason why he said that was because the government had put so many ways that he would get in trouble or how his family would be destroyed and all these like threatening things, because they didn't want him to come out with this information to scare, the common people, so to speak.
Yeah. But he was told. He was also told by his government he was not allowed to. And
well, yeah, it's also because like
once I'm dead, then the world can know what I saw.
Yeah, it was like one of those things like, hey,
punish
look,
my body.
What are you gonna do? Yeah, what are you gonna do? Destroy my dead body? Who cares?
Yeah. But
at that point?
But then not long after, I think it was only 4 or 5 years after his diary was somehow released, that his son actually on his way to appear at a Admiral Byrd kind of fan convention type thing. Like his dad was going to get honored. His dad had passed and was going to be honored. And one idea is that the book wouldn't have been leaked if his son who idolized his dad, and in most stories I understand, I should look this up again, I believe he actually accompanied his father to that Antarctica expedition, where it was supposed to be 6 to 8 months, turned out to be just under 2 months or something, and they came on back with the story of
Project High Jump.
Yeah, Operation High Jump, that whole thing. I think that his son actually accompanied him on that, and as a military officer or at least a private or something. And they say possibly his son is the one who got the book to the publisher, and for that, while he was on his way, they found a man who appeared to be dead in a warehouse, and it was Richard Byrd Jr. And he was on his way, and also pretty well decorated. I mean, again, when your dad is Richard E. Byrd,
super decorated 22 times.
Yeah, his dad is still the highest. The guy had the
Medal of Honor.
Yeah, so it's not like you're gonna
the highest level you can go. Yeah,
but his son, who's also Richard Byrd Jr., right? Richard Byrd Jr. was the one who was killed. Again, with all the Richards, it's getting a little bit muddy. There are so many Richards, like, and I didn't even realize it. How many
Right?
times
There's a
I
crap
read
ton.
that the guy who
I
went
yeah.
underground's name was Richard until just
insane.
now when you said it. Is anyone else allowed? Is anyone else allowed a ticket to Inner
I was
Earth?
reading
If
through
your
my
name's
notes
not
and I'm like,
Richard?
man, Richard was a really popular name back then. Like, everybody's Richard of some sort. Like, what the
Everyone's a
heck? That's
Richard of a
wild.
sort. Yeah, it's insane to me. I mean,
I also think it's amazing that, like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to harp on Bird, but like
Please.
in the time period 1927 to like 1948 or 1945, how much exploration that guy was able to do. Like we were talking about off camera, like
Yeah.
he was in the military. You forget that, and that was during World War I and II, where he was like, "Hey, I'm going to spend a crap ton of money the first time, and I just want to do a transatlantic flight and see if I can do it."
Yeah.
They're like, "Okay, give her a shot."
Yeah.
He went and did it, and he proved it. And then they were like, "Wow, this guy's tough nuts.
Yeah.
Let's see what else he can do." And he was like, "Hey, I want to go to the Antarctic."
It was Charles Lindbergh. Charles Lindbergh did the first transatlantic flight, I believe.
I'm not saying he was the first. He just said he wanted to do it with a.
He did the Arctic flight. He did it over the Arctic.
Transatlantic too.
He did a transatlantic too.
Yep.
Back when that was a big deal, right?
It wasn't as big a deal because what's the name had already done it. So
okay, I know
it wasn't as big a deal.
The first to fly
it was a
over
specific type
North
of
Pole.
plane. It was a specific type of plane that he was testing. That's why it was like a transatlantic, like amazing thing that he was testing.
I know,
but yeah, he was the first one to fly over. Yeah, you're right. He was the first one to fly over, like over the direct North
Pole.
Yes,
and it was 1948 that Operation High Jump was. So 3 years after the end of the war is when
1926 is when he flew over the North Pole.
North Pole, yeah. It was 1948 the beginning of Operation High Jump, I think it was.
1927 was his transatlantic flight, lieutenant commander at that time.
Yeah. And but yeah, when he had that, which was after, that's the other thing about
1928 to 1930 was his first Antarctic expedition.
Oh, the first Antarctic was before World War II as well.
I'm saying his. Yeah, it was before. This was before. Gotcha. That's why I'm like, this is so amazing because like this was a time when like we were on the verge of cataclysmic. I can't say it now.
Cataclysmic. Anyways,
thank you. Problems like we were about to go to war with the world, literally, and this dude's adventuring.
Yeah,
I mean, this guy's out
on
being
America's
like this,
dime. I love it
on American dime.
I do love it
on war money. Like this guy was amazing in the way he did it.
At the same time, you got to think this is also a time when that National Socialist Party was sending out people to look for religious, mystical relics. The whole age of spiritualism, people were on the hunt for lost knowledge. Occult was a word
was big.
Well, I mean, it just means hidden knowledge. And nobody, when you said the occult, you weren't thinking about someone trying to cast a spell with, carving something in their own or someone else's skin or something. But after that whole satanic panic of America, where they wanted to blame Satan for every new kind of music and video game that ever happened, and say there's cults all over, killing millions of children every day. Like, no. After all that, people started like associating the idea occult with bad things, but it just means hidden knowledge. You know what I mean? If they're hiding the cure for any disease from the population of the planet, then that is occult knowledge. It's hidden knowledge, and that's it. It's just scientific occult. You can be purely science, and if it's hidden, it just falls under the realm of occult.
I mean, even like 1934 to 1939, he spent 5 years in the Antarctic. Just looking up stuff like you were just talking about, doing scientific searching, just looking around for 5 years.
This is what he was passionate about.
And then 1939 through 1940, he again in the service of the military, by the way. This one wasn't like a exploration. This was more of a military thing.
Yeah.
He went up there again to look around and check on geology, biology, meteorology, all this stuff, to find out find out a good place where we can have a base of operations, because they were in the belief that if a world war broke out again, because now World War I was already going, if it was going to break out and get worse, we needed a place to escape. and this was one of those kind of places that we could escape to.
I definitely love these ideas, and I brought this up before about not just was it a time of people looking for these things, but also people had these great grand ideas. I need to look him up, and I wouldn't mind
Yeah,
doing a section
read
on
his
this other guy. But
read a lot of it. I mean, he's even has a book called Alone. I'm going to start that one probably Monday and read it
okay,
and listen to it. It's an autobiography of his trips because he went 4 times, by the way, up to Antarctic. The fourth time or the last time was the Operation High Jump.
yeah,
Let me look at the date.
I think that one started in 1948. I think it was
46 to 47. Yeah,
46 to 47. Wow,
yeah,
it was
46
right
to
after the
47.
war then. And
Right after.
that's
Yeah,
another thing that makes me think whatever story they don't want to get out, like Murphy's Law popping in my head, and the simplest explanation quite possibly being the true one. What if there was a small group of, you know, people who made it past Nuremberg trials and didn't get into paperclip, and they did have a
right.
base down there, and you go down there, and what if, like, the real secret is just there was a base of people who were trying to start the fourth,
Well, that's
and
kind of what that
and
operation was. The high
at
jump
the very
was
least they were
for
going
the
down to make sure that there
they were
wasn't,
making
right?
sure that there wasn't,
Yeah,
yeah, base. And then in hang on one second.
no problem. Let's see
In
here.
55 to
Yeah.
56 was when he went down his last time. He actually died in 57. Was the last time he went down there to establish a base
Yeah.
and literally like put a point where, hey, look, we're going to be here from now on. The U.S. Navy, because he was naval admiral
Mhm.
at the time, rear admiral, or no, actually admiral at that time, and just
he was
complete amazing guy. Like, oh,
honestly.
he was a rear admiral. Excuse me, yeah, rear admiral. And no disrespect to him and his family, but
Yeah.
like that's amazing though. Like how long of a journey this guy went to one of the most inhospitable places on earth. And we're not talking about a time when there was like heated cars and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This is dog sled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what that time
That's
is
what the
like.
pictures of him
Dog
are,
sled, and like this dude's wearing a pretty cool jacket. Like not a jacket that really like Gore-Tex or none of that stuff. He's wearing like the windbreakers that we got nowadays, and he's wearing 4 of them.
If
You know
anyone,
what I mean?
yeah, if anyone hasn't actually ever seen what Richard E. Byrd looks like,
Go look at our Instagram. There's a picture of him. He's BA, straight up badass.
He is probably what they modeled, the certain look of cartoons and comic book. He has that adventurer's look, that
Absolutely.
turn of the century, that when people, some people want to idolize the age and say certain things that I don't agree with, but he is like the quintessential man of his time, place, and age. I don't, and I hope it's all good. I've actually never read anything bad about the guy.
I was just about to say,
I just am realizing
there's not a lot of controversy about this guy.
I
Besides,
also don't know a lot
him
of what he
saying
did
inner Earth
during any of the
stuff.
wars. I don't know. I don't see what
doesn't
he
really
did.
delve too much
Doesn't talk
into
about
that.
really, like,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he was pretty busy doing all this exploration
I know.
during war times.
I mean, he could
Also,
have just
it
been the
did
guy
talk
going.
about in his book about him finding a Nazi base, but again, that's the only controversy that I
Yeah.
found.
And
That
we
was
do
because
know that there
he
are
found those people
still Nazi bases being found
all over the place.
all over Europe and all over random places because they were planning.
They were conquerors and they were going everywhere.
They were really trying to just be all over. And so if you randomly open up a hatch in the ground and find something, that you think costs a lot of money but will land you in jail, guess what?
It probably is.
It probably is. Yeah. It's probably not a joke. I mean,
yep, it's not funny. Don't mess with it. Yeah, exactly.
I find that to be one of the things that may have stigmatized other people in like the world against continuing this inner Earth search. Also, I think that around the 30s and 40s, when and again, you can piss off anyone. You can piss off most people when you claim that it is your right as whatever. It's my right from God. It's my right from my race or whatever. No matter what you
Religion,
believe,
any of that, yeah.
legend, yeah. And however you believe you and your people are blessed more than other people, the rest of the people gonna get mad, right? And so, and they're gonna maybe just get offended at all of your ideas, and maybe just the world is just like, you know what, we're done playing with this inner Earth idea. If you guys are taking it over, it's not cool no more. It's played out. You know, it's like, hey, inner Earth was just too heavily associated with, you know,
this
Nazis.
Wacko.
Yeah,
this
and
wacko.
for anyone to want to like, look, what am I going to do? I'm going to go look for inner Earth. Why? So that people can say, you know the last guy who did, right?
Well, you know what's funny that you bring that up? There was a I forget what they call that. Like when like fans write stories, what's that? Fan fiction.
Yeah.
There was a fanfic about it that the Nazis weren't evil, right? So instead of them turning into the Nazi propaganda thing, they turned into this just massive scientific community. And instead of them being violent, they became overly like scientific. So instead of them coming to your country to conquer you, they would come to your country and be like, look, we're taking over all of your science, and you're gonna have to join us and find all these relics and find these things. It was a cool little start to a read that I haven't even delved that deep into, but they get into like them finding all the Mayans and stuff like that, because they talk about the Mayans and the Aztecs going, instead of them actually like dying off like what people thought from disease and stuff like that, like they entered into these tunnels because the Nazis were like, hey, you guys are finding out about nuclear stuff, like what's it called, plutonium and all that sort of stuff. So you guys need to stop messing with these things before you die. Go inside these tunnels. This is where inner Earth is, and these people explain to you why you shouldn't mess with it. And then everybody who goes in there doesn't want to come out because it's paradise. You know what I mean? It's perfect. So they were like saving races. It was pretty cool. I mean, you have definitely read into it a little bit more, but it was a cool idea.
That's an interesting one. You know what I mean? I guess the alternate universe where Dr. Doom was good and Reed Richards was the evil one. You know what I mean?
Well, it doesn't go into like anybody being evil. It just goes into like the Nazis being this super scientific community instead of becoming this super violent,
and so
like dominant race,
like a mystical scientific. It's basically if that Vril thing.
They became like truth seekers. You know what I mean? Like complete truth seekers.
I don't know. I won't lie. I do take a little issue with sometimes people want to like, look, man. I don't know.
It's not them saying like the Nazis were good.
No, I know.
I don't want to say that. I should clarify that now that now that you're saying
no.
talking, I'm like, wait a minute.
That's what it was at all. But it's just like, man, like who sat down and wanted to make that story? I wonder sometimes. It's like,
some distant relative, like
exactly.
Actually, they're not so bad if you think of them like this.
Yeah, right. It's the Herberts from Nebraska, right? It is pronounced Herberts. It's Herberts.
Right. No, we're from Argentina.
Yeah,
we
Argentina.
moved here later.
Yeah, it was a lot later.
much later.
Much later. That's
the
funny,
60s,
man.
I swear.
I think that going along with all those other ones, they have if there were places where people could like slip away into, and this does kind of relate. People talk about Bigfoot. I won't mention too long about this, but Bigfoot Sasquatch, that he navigates underground cave systems, that he and his race or whatever, people have said that they do that. So if there were,
they talk about that in North Dakota and not Arizona, North Carolina.
Really?
But they talk about that, and it's like that's one of the things I think is interesting about being able to travel underground. Like they have these tunnels that run through North Dakota for hundreds of miles. They haven't even explored all of them because, like I said, there's parts where there's no oxygen. There's parts where there's all these crazy fumes that they can't get all the way down in there. It's a pretty interesting thing because, you think about like, oceanic exploration, like the pressure's too deep, so we just can't get there. It's not accessible. It's like these are spots that you could walk to, but we can't get to them because of this. You know what I mean? Like it's that crazy of an issue that, man, it's so simple to get to. We could fly a drone in there, but because our technology isn't up to par, we can't do it just yet.
It's
You know what I
interesting.
mean?
Yeah,
It's just crazy to see. I think of like Prometheus too, or Prometheus as well. When they like threw that little ball and he like maps out. I'm like, man, I can't wait till our technology is
I
that.
remember that.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Is that level where what if you threw that down there and it's like, oh, this goes all the way into the core of the earth,
And
echolocation,
honestly,
that sort of thing.
yeah, echolocation RF, scanning like they were doing all of that. If we could go down there again, my idea is that I think that the governments would never tell anybody. I don't think it's like, hey, we
Oh, of
found inner
course not.
Earth. We're
You can't
building a
just let that
super
come out.
highway down in there. We're connecting. You know what I mean?
I mean, think about how much
Vacations
stuff
in
they're just now
Shambhala.
releasing.
I don't
They're
think that
just
we're gonna
now
have
releasing about UFOs. Like, come on.
exactly. And
And they're like, even the stuff that they're releasing. There was a funny thing on that movie Nope that I was telling you about.
yeah,
He
I
goes,
still need to
he
see
goes,
that. I very
he
much
goes.
love
Why do you
the
think
movie.
they changed? Why do you think they changed the name UFO to UPA or whatever it is now? I forget. UAP. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's like, I don't know. Why would you have to change the name? He's like, because it makes you forget about UFO.
exactly. Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, that's so true. No, like nobody talks about UFOs anymore. Everybody's like, oh,
UAP,
have you guys seen,
UAP.
yeah, have you guys seen UAPs and all this stuff? It's
or
like
they
there's
refer to the specific tic tac
or specific crafts now. It's not UFOs anymore. It's just all these like different wording. So you kind of forget about this one general thing that would have made more sense. It was an interesting thing that they just tossed into it. Go see that movie, by the way, everybody.
I do want to see that movie myself. But it does make me think about the way that they tried to change the word we use, not just as a way of not just make you forget, but also like soften the blow. Soften the blow. Well,
yeah,
because the thing that comes to my mind is, if you were a soldier in World War I or II, or maybe even Vietnam up until that point, and you came home, and let's just say it was hard to integrate back into normal society, they called it shell shock. And today, we have this big, long, fancy word that kind of softens the blow. We call it, you suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and we can rationalize it. Shell shock sounds harsh, right?
Yeah,
he got shell shock.
It sounds like, you were dropping shells around somebody, and it was horrible.
Yeah,
traumatizing.
You're shocked from the shell casings that you're firing, and firing at you. Sounds crazy. It's like it's a trigger to hear your condition.
Throw an acronym at it, and you're okay.
People say post-traumatic stress disorder, and but the adverse effect of that is that it also makes the rest of society complacent towards it. Oh, post-traumatic stress disorder. Sounds like they've got it all figured out, and they'll take care of them. They'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
So there's that dual-edged sword about that. Whereas someone who's gone through some traumatic things, they don't need to be told, you got fucked up head, right?
Here you're in a box now. You're fine.
Yeah, but
you're with these other people. You're okay. Yeah,
but it's like the more labels you throw onto it, these big long words that sound so distant and far. You know what I mean? And it separates you from the harsh reality that maybe you also need to start from to understand and cope. I don't know.
Sure, yeah, to cope
or at least for outsiders to empathize and connect to you. Because how many people might just be like, oh, they came back and they were just weird after well, go fucking figure.
Right? Who wouldn't be?
Right? Anyone. Whether you were like actively taking part or running, it's going to, come on, duh. Nobody has
wonder, with that being said, do you think like, because of all the way that we kind of hide everything away, do you think there'll ever be another age of exploration?
I think that we're in as much of an age of exploration right now as we're allowed to be. I mean, we've got, armchair detectives,
it's more of
internet detectives.
We've
got people searching. We've got, whether or not you join MUFON or not, we've got people who are on the hunt. What's his name? From Angels and Airwaves, Tom blah blah DeLong, right? Like he like I don't think he joined MUFON, right? He started his own thing. So I think that with the technology people have, look, the community of
think
people trying to prove the shape of the earth or disprove the shape of the earth, they are on their own age of exploration. You know what I mean? You know,
I think I guess maybe what I should ask, like without being as technology or technologically reliant, just because right now, like you said, armchair, you know, detectives, like you can look anything up that you really want
yeah,
to know. I
yeah,
wonder if we'll ever be in a state where it's like, hey, get up, go out and learn it. Because I look at like Richard Branson and the
yeah.
Tesla guy, like if they were to use their money instead of being like, hey, let's go up into space and I'm gonna make my own rocket. It's like, why don't you take that money and fly over the North Pole, or completely debunk some of these wild ideas? You know what I mean? Even like the flat Earth thing, I think to some degree debunked by those people, Richard Branson and all them, like flew up there with privatized
Yeah,
cameras
I
and was
I
like,
believe that
look, you
they have
guys, you kind of
debunked it. Absolutely, I
you
believe they've
debunk the
debunked
hell
it.
out of that. You know what I mean? Where I
Hmm.
think it's a simple thing for them because I mean, look at Tesla. They have satellites in space. How many different satellites where they're able to provide internet for a whole freaking country?
There's that,
Um,
but the
you know what
other
I mean?
side of
Like,
that
how
coin,
hard would it be to pinpoint where Sasquatch is and Bigfoot and make my dream come true? I'm gonna reach out to you.
for I think that
I gotta
for
compose that email and
but my
and get Elon
mindset,
Musk on my side.
again, I'm a little bit like so far down a conspiracy rabbit hole that's what I see. I see someone like Elon Musk who, you know, whatever anyone wants to believe about him, honestly, with I think he's got a good heart, hopefully, or at least he's trying
Oh,
to
I
do
don't see any
something good
malicious
for
intent.
people. You
I
know,
think so too.
but also I think that if you have the means to start your own space program, then for every
Like of
person
all
out there,
places.
for every one Richard Branson, for every one Elon Musk, I think that there are 100, you know, people who are showing up with, you know, injunctions and court orders from nations, that make sure you understand
Where your place is, yeah.
that, right? Oh, you want to go into space? Okay, cool. You got to imagine talking to the public, man, and what might happen if all of a sudden you weren't able to buy titanium from America.
Well, I look at it
what
like
if you were never
they're at
allowed
the
to import lithium ion batteries from China or
yeah,
whatever? I
but
mean,
you
you
got to look
can
at their
destroy
level. It's a
someone.
different level. It's a completely different
That
level.
doesn't.
Those people are
They're at a
so
level where they're not shaking hands with other people. They've got to shake
they're
hands with whole
well, no,
nations.
I don't think so. I think they're at a point where they have the complete efforts money where it's like, hey, okay, you're America saying you can't get lithium batteries anymore. He could move his whole operation out of America and destroy a good fat part of American economy. And then, I mean, he could do it from Canada. And Canada is going to be like, yeah, we welcome your money and we welcome, here's all the batteries you were looking for.
But that's assuming that
You know what I mean?
that's assuming that any one of these nations, Canada or even China. I mean, look again.
And think about it.
This
The world is
conspiracy
based
rebel.
upon money.
If the entire world, if the UN, imagine if the Cold War was fake. All right, now I'm going real far. Here's a conspiracy for you.
Right, you. I was just like,
All right,
whoa,
the Cold War was fake.
Holy.
Right? How many nukes got launched during the Cold War? Anyway,
Okay.
let me put it that way. How many bombs at all got launched during the Cold War between the two major parties? Anyway, during that time, were they working on space? Right? Okay, so if you want to think of the two people who are big, and now China's big too, and China's trying to get into space and all this stuff, and whatever
China's
anyone wants
been
to
in
say.
space.
Exactly, but they're trying. But whatever is going on, if you are the big countries, and you know, we know that NASA and the Russians have worked together for space and other things,
And the Chinese, yeah.
and the Chinese. If
The
everyone
ISS.
does work together in their own way, like no matter what we want to think, as much as we might be the nation of America, I'll tell you what, the richest people from America identify with the richest people from China more than they do with their fellow Americans. That's what I would think. I think they
Well, yeah,
see
the
themselves
rich-
as the
the rich
nation
get
of
with the
the
rich.
wealthy. And that
Yeah.
is higher than the color of skin or anything. It's like, oh, you got money too?
Well, absolutely, and that's what I was gonna say.
Well,
Like, if the billionaires of the world were to get together and be like, hey, we're gonna start debunking all this stuff. Like imagine the world of exploration and the not only like so a lot of those people are looking for fame at some point because now you're the richest person ever. So
Yeah.
now you want fame and notoriety, right? And your legacy left behind. Imagine if a bunch of them got together, Branson and all those guys, and we're like, yo, we're gonna go find Bigfoot. We're gonna use all our money to scan, whatever, scan areas of each other's countries, or just use, whatever, just simple stuff, simple, stupid stuff. We'll go out into international waters and look for Atlantis. You know what I mean? Like, imagine the resources and the level of technology and the actual exploration and the stuff like what Bird did. How crazy fast and how crazy amazing the information we would get so much faster nowadays than it was in the 50s and or 30s and 50s. You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine it took him 5 years to figure out the exact North Pole. And they already had marked it, by the way, but it took them 5 years to get there.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we can fly a helicopter there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
You
Like,
just
you
fly
can
up
fly
there,
a
really
helicopter
simple, and
there.
it's not
They
like the
have cruise ships.
death-defying. Like, yeah, you
Yeah, they
and I
have
could be
cruise.
going there on a cruise,
Yeah, they have
staying
cruise
warm
ships
in our
that go near
cabin.
there. Like, it's not crazy. It's such a close thing that I think it's interesting that they use their money to do things that are like adrenaline
Yeah.
Inducing, as opposed to something that's like you could be the person to discover Hollow Earth, or you could be the person. Like, think of the adrenaline rush, think of the accomplishment that you would get from that. And that's just me being, Elgin from 9 Midnight. Like,
Yeah.
I would much rather be the guy that's like, oh, by the way, I found Bigfoot. He's in a cage, or he lives in this giant forest that I bought. By the way, I own 3/4 of Nantucket or something. You know what I mean? Like, that would be just such a badass, such a cool thing to me.
I can see
wow,
that.
look at this exploration. Look at this guy who did this thing that not only is now beneficial to the world, but is beneficial to himself, is beneficial to everyone. Like, it's just such a cooler thing than, oh, I shot a Tesla car into space just to show you I could do it.
And
Like, what
don't
the
get me
hell,
wrong, I'm
man?
not saying everything that the guy's ever done is like noble and for the betterment of all of
course not. Of course
mankind.
not.
You know what I
I'm
mean?
not saying you have to be, but I'm saying like
Yeah.
that's way more impressive to the normal common man than shooting a car in space like you became a joke.
I
I mean,
agree.
his
We're
his
still talking
space.
about Richard Byrd. We're still talking about Richard E.
Yeah,
Byrd.
yeah. I mean, like Richard Bird's story. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Like 1979, they went back and did a whole expedition and anniversary flag flying over the Antarctic, and we're talking about 50 years after his initial exploration, and they went back and just did it just because he was the one who did it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that dude will live forever. He will forever be stories. He will forever be the person that we talk about. You know what I mean? Like, these are the people that did something that mean something to everyone. I guess I would say they left an imagination. They left the question on Earth of what is.
I think that they, at the very least, as much as they can, I do kind of think that no matter how rich and powerful you are,
and they weren't billionaires. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, they weren't billionaires. But as far as like the people who have the means and ability these days, yeah, they are billionaires. But at the same time, my mind does have a spot that I'm never going to stop thinking that, like the Suicide Squad from DC Comics, right? And they all had an implant in their neck where if they went off the plan, pop. I mean, you
think it's that?
I mean, let's be honest. If someone is so rich and powerful that the only way to keep them under control is like, hey, how's your mom doing at such and such road, and Pennsylvania, we put something in her drink, right? You're not going to tell no one about what your satellite can see. We know your satellite can see it. If you tell a damn person, we're just hitting that button and mama goes away. Because we're a government and we don't care.
I mean,
look at McAfee.
Yeah, like, how long was he on the run and they knew where he was?
Oh yeah, but he
They knew
also
exactly his address, where he was, all that, and he went to a government and was like, "Here's a bunch of money. I'm never leaving your country." And they were
yeah,
like, "Yeah, cool."
but he
And they knew
also,
everything he did. They
of
knew
course,
the whole
to me, I
extradition and
see
all
that
that.
this
Like,
is different. The only commonality I see is being well off financially.
I
Is
think
that
being well off, that far level of well off, you avoid a lot of the like threat of, "Hey, we'll kill your family" kind of thing. It's like you won't touch me because
but he
you
was
will
a man
start
who
a
was on the
giant.
run. He was a man on
I
the
know, but
run. He
I'm
wasn't
saying
trying to build
that's even
something.
more. That's even more so to the point. Like, think about this. So, I guess my conspiracy of this is, um, what's his name, Musk, right?
Yeah.
He already has destroyed NASA, right? We can say that he has made NASA look like dumb fucks.
I mean, I
Excuse
think
my
Branson did
language.
it with Virgin Space
Branson did it.
before
Branson did it,
even.
and he did it with less money,
Way
less
less even.
time,
Yeah,
and just for the fuckets.
exactly. Yeah, I think Branson
Which
did it.
kind of made everyone go, "Why do we have a national
That's
aerospace
the
and
point.
science?
Why are we relying
Why are
on
we doing
our
this?"
governments? Where should our tax money be
Right?
actually going? Can I pay some taxes to Elon instead for a
But
ticket?
to that end, did they kill him? Did they hush him? Nope. The government went, "Yeah, do it. You ain't gonna do it." And then he did it, and they're like, "Oh fuck.
I mean,
we gotta downplay it a little bit." But they never were like, we can't show this guy being able to build his own rocket because it's not a thing. You shouldn't be able to have this. I mean, for God's sake, the guy he had basically ICBM. That's what he made. If you can go into space, you can launch a rocket from country to country.
I'm not thinking about this as money being the commonality. Because
I'm thinking it as if you have the means and the notoriety to be able to do it, you can get around a lot of things. And because you can get around all those things, you can go to the Arctic and Antarctic and prove or debunk some of these things, which I think would be a lot bigger, better show of your capabilities as opposed to, going into space and having space flights.
And I think that would be, and I don't believe personally that we are going to have something like that unless we first have some sort of revolution. I think there would have to be some sort of.
I think there's no necessity for it right now, so people just don't care.
Well, I think the last few years, especially, have harbored or encouraged more of an apathy towards a lot than an excitement at the new. But I mean, really, if I don't think that the money of investing, I think that there's, hey, look, I'm an independent guy and I got money so I can do it. That's one thing. But they didn't stop the guy who was building a rocket ship with no money, living with nothing but cats in the desert. And he was building it just because
to prove it.
Just to prove it. So they weren't stopping him either.
I think the interesting thing.
But I find John McAfee not to be. I think that guy who had no money is more in the class of the Elon Musk or the kind of person who is doing it to prove it. Now he doesn't have enough money to have to be discouraged all that much, and unfortunately he passed anyway. But someone like John McAfee, who is not using their money to try to give the world a bigger truth. Now, what about Edward Snowden? What about Julian Assange? These are not men who are multi-billionaires. These are people who
they weren't broke.
They were not broke, but it's
by no means. And
but they were not like big names. They're people who are on the run. Edward Snowden. Yeah, but nobody knows who the hell he is.
You got to think about too that there's a difference in them too, like the way that they were doing things. They're whistleblowers on a lot of people that would have got a lot of people and ruined a lot of things. This is not a situation where if McAfee or if Branson or Musk were like, hey, we're gonna go out and debunk all these theories that everybody's heard of. These aren't things that would ruin anything. You know what I mean? Besides, maybe aliens might ruin a bit of economy, I guess, if you really get down into it.
I think that
Um,
I mean, look, all right, Hollow Earth. If there's a civilization of Hollow Earth, or let's just say the Earth actually is flat, and I saw that this one content where they were saying that they don't believe that the world just ends. They think that there's just more continents out there that we haven't discovered. They think that the world is flat and just bigger, and that was a wild one for me. I said, "Whoa, I didn't see
yeah,
that
it
one
was
coming."
crazy.
That was
Yeah,
wild. I'm like,
yeah.
okay. I mean, all of a sudden, I needed some sanity. I wanted to watch the guy who said trees don't exist again. Anyway.
Yeah.
That guy, by the
Birds are
way.
cameras. That
Oh,
one.
which one?
The birds are cameras. Remember? Did you
Oh
hear that?
no. Wait,
That one's a good one too.
all birds are cameras?
Birds aren't real. They're just cameras.
Okay, look. I know I like to entertain a
We've
lot
gone
of
way off
wild
subject.
shit.
That's partially
Here.
my
We're
fault.
supposed to
Sorry.
be on Inner Earth.
We are sort of talking about Inner Earth
I
stuff,
mean, we
but
are. We're talking about what it would take to be like, that.
what it would take to get to
enter that
finding
age of
this.
exploration, the age of
Yeah,
discovery,
get
where
back to
people
finding,
want to
get back to
focus
the
on
bird.
finding, But here's another issue. There's a fine line of walking the pursuit of that golden age that we have only heard in myth and legend, right? And there's a fine line between the pursuit of it and and falling off any deep end. And we do this all the time.
Sure.
People fall off the
Yeah.
deep end, and then again, what the Rourkes were never heard from again. Where the fuck did the Rourkes go?
Well, that was because they were on the run too, and then they were like, you know what? Screw you, people. You don't want to hear our truth, so we'll just stay there, kind of a thing.
And I mean,
which I think is also an awesome proof of like concept, so to speak. Like, hey, look, we came back twice now, and we try to tell you the truth. You don't believe us? We're staying. They're like, where are you staying? Yeah, go back to wherever you are.
Yeah,
and then they do. It's like, oh shoot, you know what I mean?
I mean.
Those stories are the ones that make me go, this might be real. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I love that. I love that.
But no one would say this might be real if Elon came back with satellite imagery. If Elon were to come and say, well, I put my mind on this and here's all the proof, that would be an upset. Because
that's what I was saying. Like, I think if a bunch of them from different countries, different, like you were saying, the rich community, so to speak, came together and was like, we're now going to debunk these things to just prove that we can. I would be like, whoa, this stuff is coming to light and not fake anymore. Like, everyone would have to be like, if all these people are trying to have this age of exploration and debunking, like, man, think of the way that would be perceived. You know what I mean?
I do. And my mind also, I just keep coming back to the idea of I think that a lot of these things are discovered by some people who consider themselves to be a shadowy government of sorts. I really do think that there is a group of people who have enough knowledge that it outweighs their lack of money, or they've got all the real money, and what we play with is monopoly money, and we don't even understand. I mean, in 1984, Winston never even knew that he never had real chocolate in his life before he was over at the other guy's place. All of a sudden, he's like, oh my goodness, this actually tastes good. Now this is real chocolate.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, like it's a whole concept of if these things are being hidden, what if Elon Musk and Richard Branson are allowed to live the lives they live because they weren't stopped young, because they were already vetted, because they're already unknowingly Manchurian candidates?
They already knew.
I'm not trying to be that, I like these guys too. Or at the very least, they're playing ball. They're playing ball. I think that no matter how much money you have, that if someone threatens you and they can do whatever they are threatening you with, it doesn't matter if they've got less money than you. You're going to be afraid. People
I absolutely think that
roped into ransoms and blackmail all the time, and because the person blackmailing you is not rich and they want a piece of your rich.
I think you're right there, and I think though, like, it depends on the notoriety and the fame of the person, like how easily or how untouchable they might be. You know what I mean?
I mean, I can also see it as a situation of, doesn't matter how big you are, or how big you think you are. If you actually were in an office with Mr. Musk, come here. I just found something and I haven't shown anyone else yet. I'm going to show you. look at this picture that just came off Satellite 6.
Right.
If that were to happen, I don't care who you are, you probably get shocked with fear at not even if you've been looking for aliens and then you found an alien with a sign that says Zeta Reticuli 2 more miles, right? I mean, I always like to go there, you know, in my mind. It's fun to say Zeta Reticuli. Anyway, you know, if you saw that, even if you're not afraid of the concept of we're not alone in the universe, I don't care. Even me, I want to be the guy who breaks the news to the world, but I'm still afraid of seeing the picture first and finding out I'm the guy who knows and might have to break the news.
Really?
I mean, look, man, I want to tell everyone.
I guess I'm just not.
But I also don't have enough money to be afraid for my life, right? Because I'll tell you what,
I don't fear.
Because if I'm the guy who discovers aliens and they shoot me in the face for it, well, then I get to go down in history as the martyr who exposed the truth,
I'm like, so be it.
But Elon Musk gets to be afraid for how many billions of dollars? That's what I'm saying. People can get attached to this world more than they get attached to being the noble.
At some point, you stop fearing things.
But that's what makes me think about John McAfee again. The
guy wasn't afraid anymore.
He wasn't afraid anymore, but he also wasn't attempting to do anything to bring the concept of humanity up.
He also was living his
vices
life and vices and like
he was living.
Y'all ain't gonna do nothing kind of a thing.
Like if we want to bring up, I don't like John McAfee coming up in the conversation at all because if anything, well,
he's horrible.
No, only for the reason that I think that of course you'd let a man like John McAfee run around and fake pay a country. We'll let him pay a country instead of going into that country and kill. Why? Because he's giving the whole concept of rich people a bad name anyway. It's working for us anyway. You know what I mean? So that these are the levels of conspiracy that my mind go into. Why does McAfee not belong on the list? Because he's not trying to do anything good for us anyway. We don't even need to threaten that guy's life because he isn't because he's not even going to find out because he's not doing anything good for anyone. He just wants
for anyone. Yeah.
I've seen some of the stuff that he was into.
Not good stuff.
and while we're at it, John McAfee is the guy who put the biggest virus on everyone's computer. It's called McAfee Antivirus. If you've had it on your computer, get it off. Windows Defender is better.
A man is a genius.
I mean, everyone complains about pop-up ads right now, but we used to buy them and say thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you for telling me.
Is that less?
I don't have a virus today.
Did you use a file on the thorns on that hack? But I think that if he was trying to do something good, that he would have probably been in an equal situation. I think that if Branson and Bezos maybe and Musk, if these guys are trying to, hey, look, not only can we get in space, we're starting, the colonization race. I think that would be something they wouldn't even allow either, because as soon as we're the independent colony of Mars, then that means the aliens get to come to us and say, hey, we're so glad. So your governments have been like saying, no, quit talking to our people and don't interrupt our TV signals and like say we're here to help. But you guys aren't part of Earth anymore. We love your new flag with the moon on it. So we're going to come and talk to you.
Well, the B&B. Yeah.
So if that were the situation, if the idea is they're not talking to us because the governments have collectively have their conspiracy, we're going to pretend to have war because the secret war is against, right? Then, dude,
right? Yeah.
We didn't fire any bombs during the Cold War.
Yeah. Well, it was always about we could. I'm holding the button. I could.
Yeah,
I'm holding my hand over the button.
It was always about we could, and where were all the battles fought? Yeah. All the battles were fought in other people's nations, rich in resources. Anyway. Anyway, I can't stop seeing conspiracies. All right, so you guys heard it. Piece all of what we said together, and that's tonight's conspiracy. It's all there.
We ended it on a whole conspiracy, whole 10, 20 minutes of conspiracy in the end.
Yeah, let's just remember one thing. this was about Inner Earth until it became about why we'll
That
never
was probably
find out.
my spinoff, and I'm sorry.
You know,
I did bring
liked
up the next age of exploration, and I'm so
the next age
excited
of
for
exploration.
it.
I want it.
I'm so excited for it.
I think that living in
There
the
has to be a
information
reason for it, I
age is
think,
holding
though.
it up. The information age, the digital age. If someone can push
Yeah,
a button,
we're
and
too
all of a
much
sudden,
by and large, man. Thank you, Wally, for showing that. You know, what's the point? We have the internet to look it up.
You know, I've never been able to even sit through it.
You're crazy. You should watch that movie.
One. I can't stand it. No, I don't like these ideas of where humanity's going. You know what I mean? Even like Tom Cruise
I like it.
You know, War of the Worlds, when everyone's just like holding guns to each other's face, and it's like, I don't care if your daughter's in the back seat, I'm stealing the car. It's like, it's like that was really what human beings would do. It's not like,
we go back
hey
to
everyone,
idiots.
I've got no more space in the van, so crawl on top as we drive away. It's like,
let's all get out of here.
Get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. So I can get out of here.
Please let me get my daughter out of the back seat of the car. I got no time for that. That's humanity when the aliens come down. You know, like
pretty accurate, I'm sure.
But it's 50-50. Anyway, thank you, everybody.
Of course.
We're gonna end it all on that. Conspiracies. Thank you for everyone.
Thanks again.